Next thing is you're decreasing, on the way to basic sanity, one of the parameters you'll see is decreasing histrionic dependency. So one of the subtle aspects of our psyche is that many times we're operating not so much in the present moment as in the present moment informed by all past moments. The same way in Chinese Taoism, I love it how they describe that every time you show up in a relationship, you bring every relating moment you've ever had with anybody else ever into that moment as well. It comes in at one moment. When you deal with somebody, every relationship, boom, right there, right? You see this with inner city kids. They just can't trust. They just can't trust you, you know? And you can be so nice to them for so long and be so generous, and they'll still rob you. I saw this growing up in inner city. They'll still rip you off, still take your stuff. Like after a year of knowing them, you leave an extra $100 on the table, gone. Part of that is, yeah, that they don't really know if they're going to live another 30 seconds. So the long view isn't really developed. They'll take the advantage in the moment when you're in a city or when you're really, really desperate, you know, whatever. Inner city as a symbol for desperation. But the other part is that there's this sense of they just don't develop that trust so easily. It takes a really, really long time, right? So they have a history of what I saw in the inner city of being very, very harshly treated. Very harshly treated. No sensitivity, no caring. Oftentimes basic appetites are denied from very young age. Appetite for affection, appetite for safety, appetite for food. If you deny affection, safety, and food to young children, they have a hard time developing any sense of basic sanity. So you see this kind of thing, you know, as it goes along. We have to subtly search how we show up in each moment as a product of the past. It has to be cut off. If I extrapolate this to the future, you can see that in the Mahasiddha tradition of yoga, when a person takes a light body, a rainbow light body, people who are new to the tradition will often say, oh, they resolved their death. They resolved their death into pure light. But actually, when you're steeped in the tradition and you've been meditating a long time, you realize, actually what they did was they resolved their birth. They resolved all the so-called history and karma that led up to them being a Mahasiddha because they resolved linear time itself. Boom, no linear time. Boom, they never existed. Which I always find fascinating because, right, you start to think, why are Mahasiddhas thought about in so many different ways by so many different people, and everybody agrees that's who they are? Because they have no history. You can project anything you want on them, to be anything you want them to be. They have no history. So they resolved their birth, they resolved all their karma, they resolved all histrionic dependency. Now, we are obviously following the same path of the Mahasiddha to the light body, but it's not necessary for us to reach it in one lifetime. Maybe in this lifetime we get to stage 5, 6, or 7. But progressively, one of the characteristics will be dissolution, dependency in the present moment on your past. This is unconscious, of course, most times. Sometimes it's conscious. Oh, here's that street again. Every time I go down that street, that damn dog comes out and barks at me when I get to that house and scares me. There it is again, you know. And we have this histrionic dependency, you know, over and over and over. Or you see dogs and you get scared right away. Run dogs for a moment. See dogs, inner city. I guess my inner city thing. All nasty dogs around the inner city. You see and you get scared right away. You know. Well, how do you know that dog's not going to come up to you and want to lick you and play with you? And, you know. So we have this histrionic dependency we bring into each moment. We can work directly and clearly with that and diminish it. So we're actually fresh and new. One of the ways to do it. Let me give you a practical advice on this. One of the best ways I ever learned is every single time you meet somebody. I don't mean meet them for the first time. I know Eric, I know Brian, everybody. You come and I see you, I see you again, wonderful. It's not that you're meeting just a new person. It's everybody you know already and new people. Freshness and freshness, a fresh immediacy, no history. Don't meet that person with a history. You're going to find that you do. Oh, I don't do that. Yes, you do. Listen deeply inside, subtly inside. Notice how you greet them, the bhava, the feeling of your energy when you greet them. Is it completely open? Is it already locked into, wow, you're late already, you're always late, you know. Is it expecting, oh, he's going to talk about himself again, you know. Whatever. Is it something like that, or is it really fresh and open every single time? And of course, someone always mentions, as you're probably going through in your mind watching this right now, but then I'll get used. Then I'll get abused by people if I come in fresh and open every time. I can't go and meet the hoodie on the corner fresh and open. Why can't you? Who's they going to try to rip me off? Well, just be present. They try to rip you off, don't let them. Why do you have to carry the history? You might not be open to them when they want to show you love and kindness, the hoodie on the corner, if you just show up waiting for them to rip you off, right? Okay, so it's very clear that we want to dissolve histrionic dependency in a state of basic sanity as well. So that's something else we can work with. And the way we can work directly with that is just freshness and openness, freshness and openness. And every time. I mean, here we're giving a talk and you're sitting in the audience, but every time my eyes go to you, hey, I don't know. I expect you to fully like explode or something, you know. Hey, look at that, Alvaro just exploded, cool. Like, who knows, right? Like walking down the street and a guy has a motorcycle accident in front of us. It's like, yeah, wow, accident, that happens. He's messed up maybe, let's go check it out. You know, it's not, ah. We saw some people go a bit crazy, you know, and we went up and helped him up and picked up his motorcycle and checked his broken bones, right?
So how does that still needs to be balanced, right, with a useful generalization? Like working with somebody who, let's say, has a history of complicating things, and say, oh, let me take on this project for you. You know, and you want to meet them fresh and anew, maybe this will be the time when everything clicks for them and they do it successfully, but you know what I mean? Like, it can't be so absolute, I don't think.
The example was kind of amorphous.
So
you have a friend.
Yeah, I have a friend that I work with. And, okay, so basically somebody has a history of creating things for a company and it falling short. It becomes too complicated. It can't
Coming up with an idea that they want to execute and they don't execute it. Okay.
Yeah, and it's been a pattern that they have.
It gets complex and they can't really bring it to fruition. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a new project is offered, and
by that person.
Yeah. And,
okay.
And they want, but you know, you want to meet them fresh and new, but then again, you also want to be discriminative. So you just have to work both. Yeah.
No, you meet them fresh and new for sure, and if you are smart, it's not like you're carrying the history in to limit the situation. You're carrying the history in this sense. All you're doing is not being histrionic dependent in a limiting way, which is what that describes, but you're bringing the history in a way that keeps it open and real. And you say, in the past, we've burnt a lot of time, energy, and money on ideas of yours that haven't worked. Here's what we need now if you want to institute this idea. We're going to do it in 4 phases. By this date, this will be there in actual deliverable experience, whatever you're creating, Mr. XYZ, Mrs. XYZ. And if it's not, we end it. We don't take it up again until that's rectified. In fact, we don't even give it any attention anymore. In fact, we stop funding you or whatever, you see? It's no problem. But you're fresh with them each moment, right? Would it be the case where you could usefully generalize, and they come up with this creative project and you go, no? Just say no. Why? Because you have this history. Well, it doesn't mean that being fresh and meeting everybody fresh without a history of you projecting onto them as a limitation doesn't mean you can't assess the resources that you have and say, we can't take another risk on you. You're smiling, loving, really open to you, love you very much, you're a sister, you're a brother, whatever. You want to do what? No. No friggin' way. What do you mean, but what? I said, well, no. Do some small projects around your house and bring us over and show over the next few months and let's see if things work like that. And maybe we'll give you a shot again. That's not that at all, right? Prejudging based on holding an emotionally charged concept of the person as dysfunctional, right? That's not what you want to do. So seeing him fresh is really fresh with no history. But it's not naive and able to be used, right? I was big on this. I was just telling you the other day, I think, about profiling, remember? Yeah. So when the Twin Towers were first hit in New York by the terrorists, who we can pretty much assume were all Muslim, radical, fundamentalists, not exactly the best examples of Muslim, right? We in America and around the world, people started to say, whoa, we have to like check people before they get on the plane. Yeah. So who are we checking? Who are the obvious people we're going to check? People that are dressed like Middle Eastern Muslims, you know, or nice big beards with skull caps, even if you're not dressed in a big sheet, you know. Okay, then is that profiling? Yes, that's profiling. So in America, it quickly became like a bad thing to do. But that is demonstrating a very normal aspect of wisdom, which is called useful generalization. Is it based on histrionic dependency? Let's see. Yes. In a good way? Yes. Is it usefully generalizing? Yes. Right now, the people that are blowing stuff up, we're all Muslim. You know, that's the way it is. And then, of course, maybe 100 years from now, when the religion's more, you know, dispersed around the world again, it's not so associated with the Middle East or Western China or something like that, Georgia, and then you have the blonde grandmother from Missouri, blowing stuff up, which we're starting to see, right? Muslim terrorists who don't look profilable, you know, who are looking different. In England, we see it now, right? A lot of it going on in England. So you see radicals, English radicals, speaking on the videos for these groups, and they look like, you know, chalk and cheese little guys. And you go, wow, they don't look Middle Eastern, because they're not Middle Eastern. Okay, but right after the Twin Towers were hit, the terrorists were still mostly Middle Eastern. You could probably come up with a few examples that weren't. But that's to usefully generalize. So if I'm online at the airport, I remember being online at the airport, I'm like, check him. What do you say to the guy security? Check that motherfucker, you know, because he fits the profiling, you know. And I'm not saying I don't like that man. I'm not saying I don't love that human being. I'm not saying anything other than it fits the profile. I have a brain. It's got wisdom flowing through it, useful generalization. Nothing against you. If you got nothing going on, you won't be offended, you know, that kind of thing. So this is a very important understanding when we talk about meeting someone fresh and new. It's especially in relationships, though. In relationships. Not so much work and terrorism, whatever. These are all interesting ways to illustrate this example, but illustrate this principle. But it's in relationship especially. When you meet somebody, are you open, really open when you meet them? Or do you come up with, oh shit, I like this guy a bit. I like this and this about him, but not so much that, you know. That's no good. That holds people in a certain place in your heart. And actually, it doesn't allow them to open. It doesn't encourage and create a space for them to open and grow. In the Tselegi tradition in America, the Cherokee, the Tselegi people said that you never should say, he is greedy, he is hateful, she is hysterical, you know. None of these kind of ideas. You should never have the verb that equates the state of being with that negative. They always say that that stops people from opening, you know. And the Hasidic Jews that I know from the mystic tradition went even further, and they said you should never talk about a person to a person who hasn't met that person yet, because now they're loaded before they even meet. Beautiful, right? This has to do with this histrionic dependency. Everybody's recognized that it's not a good thing when it limits the experience, right, in the negative. It goes without saying, probably, well, we'll mention it anyway, that attachment and aversion, the two poles of attachment and aversion that people are pulled by in their lives, basically the world of duality, are diminishing tremendously as one heads towards stage 7, right? So by stage 5, we should be really clear and, you know, have this clear view that we're not going to be pulled this way or that way. Not going to be attached to this, not going to be pushing this away, you know, either way, right? Raga, dvesha in Sanskrit. We don't want to be expressing raga and dvesha. True? Simple. We don't need to go into it too much. There is, in basic sanity, a deeper and more intimate connection to humanity itself. That should be increasing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 through those stages. That is one of the hallmarks of basic sanity as well. You are not having so many flavors. You're not projecting a 6 realm fixation. You're not projecting and dragging forth histrionic dependency to make, you know, the experience not fresh anymore. You're seeing people and things the way they are, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, at that point, it becomes obvious that we have this deep, intimate rapport with human beings because we don't have so much filters up. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't be thinking wisely that when you approach the hoodie on the corner in the the barrio, in the like really desolate, desperate, broke area, that you're going to be a little bit ready for action. There's no problem with that. You just don't need to project it onto the person as good or bad or expect it. Just ready. Don't need to be expected. So we have a deeper rapport. We have a deeper intimacy with all of humanity as we cultivate basic sanity, right? The person in basic sanity has no buffers. There's nothing between us. So basically we're talking about coming into a state of unconditional love. In stage 7, we can pretty much equate stage 7 with unconditional love. It's often talked about as openness or shunya, void, empty, whatever. But the best way to really talk about it would be boundless wholeness of love. The boundless integrity of love. The boundless innate integrity of love, right? Unconditional love. Because that is the real intimacy of human beings. When we take away all the boundaries, right? All the borders. When the borders blur or they disappear. So there's a deeper intimacy. That's important to understand too. There's also a sense that our fairness, our concept of fairness has to be jettisoned as well as we develop basic sanity. Understand? Basic sanity would have us understand there is no fairness in the world, except if we call karmic law fair. But it's not fair in the sense that you're going to get your karmic retribution right away. Right? That's not how the game works. So an eye for an eye is a very simplistic way of understanding karma. It doesn't really quite work that way. So if we are cultivating basic sanity, we're letting go of the sense that life should be fair. That there's some way that there's some divine cosmic force where good people get good stuff. Good people get good stuff, right? Things are fair. Where people should act a certain way to each other, that's the basic rule. Well, it's not. It's not. And good people don't always get good stuff. And some really, really good people get really the short end of the stick in life. If kids get cancer and they die, horrible death of pain and whatever, though usually they handle it better than an adult does because they have less conditioning. But kids get cancer and die. It doesn't seem fair, does it? So in my sense of it, of our traditions coming out of the East, fairness is really a concept that doesn't even exist in the Dharma, and as far as I can pick up in Taoist tradition as well. There is really no sense of fairness. What would you judge fair upon? It would all be relative, wouldn't it? And there really is no sense of relative when it comes to a virtue. So we wouldn't have fair, because fair is based on some relative assessment of what is fair, what is not fair. True? Isn't it the word we always use in contract negotiation? Is this a fair settlement? Is this a fair way to be dealt with? Well, I don't know. What's fair? It's all negotiable. So I couldn't call that a virtue, to be fair. Right? So if we lose that idea of fairness, we're much closer to basic sanity as well. Again, it has to do with no expectations, right? You see the relationship to having no expectation. You can see a relationship to not taking anything personal. In basic sanity, you don't take anything personal. Someone's having a bad day, they're having a bad day if they take it out on you, you know? See what I mean? Mm-hmm. And in that sense of intimacy, in that sense of no fairness needed, you can't get let down. So basically, in basic sanity, you also have a non-contrived, spontaneously generated sense of gratitude for life. Just a deep engagement at the level of love and gratitude. So I'm talking higher stages of basic sanity now. It becomes very natural to feel a deep sense of love and gratitude and engagement with life. There's another hallmark of basic sanity you want to look for. That person's just happy to be alive, you know, no matter what's happening to them. Now, if I'm just happy to be alive no matter what happens to me, and horrible things are happening to me, because I know that I'm saved by some mystical divine person who they said was a human, came from the Middle East, and I'm going to go to heaven someday, I'm not really being present with the gratitude for being alive. I'm waiting for heaven later. So I sort of think life sucks. in that situation. But I'll tolerate it because I'm going to get something later, right? Basic sanity wouldn't be that. So that's not basic sanity, right? That's basic patience. That's awesome patience. Basic sanity would be more like, life was never fair or unfair. The concept is ridiculous. The cards, the chips fall the way they fall. I got mine. Here it is. Wow. How many of you have been close to death? Anybody in the room? Never had any close calls with death? I don't know. Why do I have so many? Is that Mula Nakshatra and Moon Rahu in the 8th? It must be. Yeah, I had a lot. But I remember thinking each time, Kalasarpa? Kalasarpa? Yeah, maybe, right, that too. So maybe, but anyway, I remember each time thinking, this is how it ends? Expected more like a band and some kind of, wild heroic moment or something people could remember. So boring and uneventful, and I'll never be famous this way, So and I remember thinking, shit, man, so if it did end, that was it. So you really got to be ready to have it in any crappy way at any crappy moment, right? So, gratitude, just for the way it is. Did you have that feeling when it's about to end? Were you too?
The second time.
Second time. First time was just too much panic.
First time, yeah. I really know what's going on.